Prabhupada. Namo Vishnu Braya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Auravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatyade Satarne. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Today we're going to read from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 6, which is Sankhya Yoga, text number 29. Sarvabhutasthama atmanam sarvabhutane chatmani ikshite yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadharana. The true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized person sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. Prabhupada's purport: a Krishna conscious yogi is the perfect seer because he sees Krishna, the Supreme, situated in everyone's heart as Super Soul, Paramatma. Ishvara Sarvabhutanam Hrideshe Arjuna Tishtati. The Lord in his Paramatma feature is situated within both the heart of the dog and that of a Brahmana. Perfect yogi knows that the Lord is eternally transcendental and is not materially affected by his presence either in either a dog or a Brahmana. That is the supreme neutrality of the Lord. The individual soul is also situated in the individual heart, but he is not present in all hearts. That is the distinction between the individual soul and the super soul. One who is not fakshi in the practice of yoga cannot see so clearly. Krishna conscious person can see Krishna in the heart of both the believer and the non-believer. In the Smriti, it is confirmed as follows: Atat tatvach chamatridvach cha atma hi paramo hari. The Lord, being the source of all beings, is like the mother and the maintainer. As the mother is neutral to all different kinds of children, the Supreme Father or Mother is also. Consequently, the Super Soul is always in every living being. Outwardly also, every living being is situated in the energy of the Lord. As will be explained in the 7th chapter, the Lord has primarily two energies. The spiritual or superior, and the material or inferior. The living entity, although part of the superior energy, is conditioned by the inferior energy. The living entity is always in the Lord's energy. Every living entity is situated in him in one way or another. The yogi sees equally because he sees that all living entities, although in different situations, according to the results of fruit of work, in all circumstances, remains the servants of God. While in the material energy, the living entity serves the material senses, and in the spiritual energy, he serves the Supreme Lord directly. In other words, the living entity is the servant of God. This vision of equality is perfect in a person in Krishna consciousness. So the verse again: Sarvabhutastham atmanam sarvabhutane chatmani ikshite yoga yuktatma sarvatra samadarshanaha. The true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized soul sees me, the same Supreme Lord, everywhere. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Auravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatyade Satarne. Ultimately, Krishna consciousness is extremely simple. As it explains here, we have one vision, one quality of vision when we're in the material energy, and we have another quality of vision when we're in the spiritual energy. So that remains with us, whether we want to be in the spiritual energy or in the material energy. And our relationship with Krishna is a foundational point, whether we accept ourselves as Krishna's servants or as the servants of the servant of Krishna, or we identify ourselves with this gross and subtle existence, and we serve our senses in different ways. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Avajananti mam uda manushim dhanam ashritya param bhavam ajanato mama bhuta maheshwara. The problem with material existence is that, generally speaking, one thinks an ordinary person is the supreme, and one thinks that the supreme is an ordinary person. When Srila Prabhupada was here, there are many personalities who were coming to the West, and they were claiming that they were God. Of course, in the material world, everyone feels in some way that they are God, in the sense that they should be the center of other people's attention. But these particular personalities, like there was one little boy, his mother was claiming he was God. And one time I was in Los Angeles, in the garden in Los Angeles with Srila Prabhupada, and the manager there, Karunda Prabhu. And Karunda Prabhu was telling Srila Prabhupada that we were invited by the representatives of one little Indian boy to come to the airport because this little Indian boy was God. And since we were devotees of God, we should go and greet this Indian boy at the airport when he came in. So Srila Prabhupada didn't really accept that. He said, yes, you should go there. And when you see him, you should kick him in the face with your shoes on. Prabhupada was not very appreciative of this little boy. And indeed, sometime later, when he was going to one engagement, someone came up to this boy and took a pie and put it into his face. So that was the milder version of kicking him in the face with shoes on. So everyone has a sense of being important in the material world. And of course, our importance is all based upon whatever position our body happens to find itself in. That if we're not important to the whole world, at least we want to be important to part of it. Therefore, it says that if we can't find happiness anywhere else, then we get a dog. And at least we try to serve the dog, the idea that the dog loves us and it's subordinate to us. So everyone needs this feeling that someone loves them and that they're subservient to them. Because that's our nature, is that we want to serve, we want to be loved, and we want to be served, but actually we wind up serving the things that we think we're the master of. We may have a dog, but actually we become servant to the dog. We have to take the dog out on a leash, usually, and walk it so many times a day. So who's walking who? Are we walking the dog, or is the dog walking us? But we do that because we think the dog loves us. Because we think that we're the center of the dog's attention. And indeed, in the illusory energy, it's true. We have this body which we worship as our object of devotion, and we try to get others to assist that worship. But ultimately, since we're not this body, the atmosphere in which the soul lives, trying to serve his senses, is rather not very encouraging. Because in our original position, we serve the Supreme, and in reciprocation, we get unlimited love, affection, and pleasure. And in the material world, when we take this body as our God, as our Supreme, on the energy, the illusory energy, the daivi, the material energy, then the result is we get a lot of problems. No matter how much we try to serve the body and things in relationship to the body, neither will we get any ultimate satisfaction, because after all, the body, no matter how much we serve it, doesn't stop growing old, nor are we ever completely comfortable in the body. Nor do we ever have a clear vision of what to do to become comfortable and happy in the body. Although we may try in so many ways, as Prahlad Maharaj said, Patirna Krishna Parataksatova Itobi Padyeta Griha Vratanam Adanta Govir Vishitam Tamizram Punas Charvita Charvananam. So Matir means our consciousness. So basically speaking, we want to put our consciousness, our awareness, in something which will give us happiness. If we see a nice ice cream cone, we think, when my senses have union with this ice cream cone, happiness will be invoked. I'll be in ice cream heaven for at least a little while before I fall down again into the material, another type of consciousness. But we want to merge our consciousness with the ice cream and derive the maximum amount of happiness in varieties: strawberry, vanilla, raspberry, and sometimes when we really fall down deep into the modes of nature, even chocolate. But this merging of consciousness, of our consciousness into the material energy, is never stable, because there's only so much ice cream we can eat. And then ice cream heaven turns into digestion hell. But as Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mahatmanas tumam partha, daivim prakritim ashritya, vajnanyana manaso gyatva bhutadim avyam. When we take our consciousness and focus it on Krishna, by focusing it on service to Krishna, then the result is that we come under the spiritual energy, which is a different energy entirely. Because in this energy, there's no, as Krishna says, there's no loss and there's no diminution. When we experience the spiritual energy, it doesn't diminish the more we concentrate on it. As a matter of fact, the more we're put under the spiritual energy, then everything becomes new and fresh. And it becomes new and fresher perpetually. Although we may not be completely under the control of the spiritual energy at the present moment, we have some experience that if we sincerely try to chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If we chant and we call out to Srimati Radharani, Lord Krishna, to engage us in their service, then the result is, if we're sincere about that calling out, it's not simply a mechanical process like a parrot Polly want a cracker, as they say in English. Polly probably wants a cracker, but Polly is probably chanting that verse maybe somewhat more conscious than we are. In any case, if we have faith that Krishna and Krishna's name are non-different, that when we chant the name of Krishna, he's personally present there. And when we chant the name of Srimati Radharani, R.A., that Srimati Radharani is personally present there. And we ask them to engage us in their loving service. We do it in that mood. Because after all, as Krishna says, Naham Prakasha Sarvasha Yoga Maya Samavrita Mudayam Navijanandi Lokayam Ajam Avyam. That I'm never manifested to the foolish and unintelligent. To them I'm covered by my eternal creative potency, Yogamaya. And so the deluded world knows me not. I'm unborn and inexhaustible. So generally speaking, as conditioned souls, when we chant Hare Krishna, we don't necessarily immediately experience being under the spiritual energy. As a matter of fact, we may be chanting Hare Krishna and our mind may be completely in some other place in the universe. Now, it may bother us, it may not bother us where our minds are going when we're chanting. But the point is, we should at least recognize that Krishna is present with Srimati Radharani, at least theoretically accept it. And therefore, humbly, lovingly, attentively, ask them to engage us in their loving service. And according to our sincerity, if that's our actual desire, then that's what they'll do. They'll remind us, they'll enter into our consciousness by giving us protection under the spiritual energy. And in that spiritual energy, they personally can appear along with their forms, along with their associates, equality, and their pastimes. And therefore we can experience what the spiritual energy is. Now, even if we're not absorbed in the spiritual energy, even if the spiritual energy has not manifested to our consciousness or in our consciousness, still, if we even chant with a little bit of sincerity, we can see that Nava, Nitya Nava Nava Nama Yogana, that Krishna and things in relation to Krishna, whether it be his name, his form, deity form, books that we read about Krishna, Srila Prabhupada's books, or even service to the devotees, or our attempts to help others become Krishna conscious, or to create a spiritual atmosphere wherever we are. Those are always new and fresh. They're not like a material activity which ultimately becomes boring after some time, and therefore one must give it up and do some other activity. At least in proportion to our sincerity of chanting Hare Krishna, along with our faith that Krishna and Srimati Radharani are personally present when we're chanting Hare Krishna, and if we sincerely ask them to put us under the control of the spiritual energy, they'll be very happy to do so. And when that happens, then obviously our faith in the holy name and in the process of pure devotional service will increase by experience. Because Krishna consciousness is not meant to be an intellectual experience, it's meant to be an actual experience. It's not just a philosophical exercise, it's a devotional exercise, of which philosophy can help us do the right activity in the right mood, with the right faith, so that we actually allow Krishna and Srimati Radharani to reveal themselves to us. Now, one obstacle, generally speaking, is expressed here to being put under the spiritual energy, is that it's not only the holy name that we have to become conscious of, because everything is there in the holy name, but that means that everything is actually an expansion of the holy name. Eke Desha Ta Yagya Jotashvim Saratiyata Parasha Brahmana Shaktis Tedam Akilam Jagat. That there's nothing but Krishna and Krishna's energy, and Krishna's energies are not different from Krishna. Therefore, in every moment, in every relationship we have, there is Krishna present there. Just like Prabhupada gives the example that a businessman may own a big company. He may not be personally present in every aspect of the company, but he is present in the fact that the company works under his direction. All the energies are moving according to his desire, and therefore, in that sense, he's there. Because Krishna is also in our heart as a super soul and giving us direction, either to make progress in spiritual life, if we're interested in applying in our lives devotional service with enthusiasm, then Krishna gives us the intelligence by which we can increase our steadiness and our enthusiasm in devotional life. And ultimately, when he sees that we're sincere and making proper use of the intelligence he's giving us to engage it further in devotional service, then Krishna personally reveals himself to us, puts us deeper into the spiritual energy, and along with in that spiritual energy, he and Srimati Radharani become manifest to us. And therefore, in that ecstasy of love, then all our consciousness becomes purified. And the ecstasy and the happiness of Krishna consciousness in our senses, our mind, and our intelligence become purified, and our ego, false ego, becomes removed, and we further identify ourselves as the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. Therefore, at first we're hearing things theoretically about Krishna and about how things are related to Krishna. But then we have to apply that in our devotional service. At the beginning, people have some faith and they associate with the devotees, but our service as devotees to Krishna is to inspire people to do something practical in Krishna's service. We're not simply trying to be polite to people. We're not simply trying to make friends with people so that they like us and they think we're normal, even though we're Hare Krishnas. That somehow or another people think, oh, the Hare Krishnas, they're normal. That's very bad if people think we're normal. Because we're not supposed to be normal. We're supposed to be super normal. If we're normal, that means we're quite dull. We should be super normal. People should be amazed. After all, we have a perfect philosophy. And when people hear it, they should be amazed. And if we apply it and we're actually nice to people without any selfish motivations other than to help them, which is to help them revive their relationship with Krishna, then they'll become even more amazed. and we're actually experiencing transcendental happiness and love for Krishna and everything and everyone in relation to Krishna, then people will be even more amazed. When many people came in contact with Srila Prabhupada, they were amazed, both by his philosophy, by the way he dealt with people, and by his complete conviction and dedication to the service of Krishna. Hardly anyone took Prabhupada as an ordinary, and when by being familiar with him, too familiar with him, they began to think that he was an ordinary person, then they became less than ordinary. So similarly, it is not that we're going to become extraordinary by ourselves. We become extraordinary when we agree to become the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna, and then Krishna puts us under the spiritual energy, because it's the spiritual energy which is actually extraordinary. And of course, those who agree to be put under the spiritual energy, they're also extraordinary in this world. As Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Manushanam sahasreshu kaschid yadati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschimam veti tatvataha. Out of many thousands among men, one may be endeavoring for perfection. And those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So it's very rare that anyone is actually interested in coming under the influence of the internal energy of Krishna, that anyone is interested in becoming a Mahatma. Mahatmanas tumam parta daivim prakritim ashritya vajanya nanyamanaso gyatva bhutidim avyam. Krishna calls them great souls because they're under the protection of the divine energy. So that's, practically speaking, all we're trying to do is become inspired to take shelter of Krishna through his representatives, come under the shelter of the spiritual energy, and in that way become extraordinary. Everyone may be a spiritual spark eternally. The spiritual spark is eternal. But when the spiritual spark is in the fire, then it glows. But as soon as the spiritual spark goes outside the fire, then it depends where it goes. If it lands on earth, it may smolder for some time. If it lands on the water, it may apparently go out. If it lands on dry grass, it may start another fire. In any case, we're eternally spiritual beings. It's simply our great opportunity, but through the process of hearing and understanding and accepting with conviction, to apply ourselves in the activities of sadhana bhakti, but especially careful about dealing with other devotees. Because if we deal carefully with other devotees in a mood of devotion and service, then our tendency to want to hear from them increases. And when Krishna sees we want to hear, then he gives us the ability. Just like Krishna can open our ears when he sees that we want to hear, and when we don't want to hear, he can close our ears so we can't hear anything. When we want to hear, then Krishna awakens us, awakens our senses and allows us to hear. And when Krishna sees that we don't want to hear, then gradually our eyelids close and we fall asleep. So we'll want to hear from those we have some nice relationship with. Generally speaking, from our worst enemy, when they're speaking to us, we're not taking notes down to find out how to serve them. Only a very advanced devotee will take lessons from their worst enemy. But generally speaking, for the conditioned soul, when they hear from someone they love, they appreciate, they want to exemplify and develop the same qualities or abilities that they have, then their ears broaden, expand. And if they have a very close relationship or they're very anxious to learn something, then they'll even remember what they heard. And if they're even more enthusiastic to develop the same qualities, the same abilities of the person that they're hearing from, they'll even try to practice what they've heard within their lives. Now, for most people, as Krishna says, that they're interested in simply acquiring things externally. And even they read a book such as by Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. The whole idea of that is so they can acquire something material, either gross or subtly. The whole objective is to get something temporary. Get a better position, as Queen Kunti says, Bhogaishvarya Asakta, Queen Kunti says that Vipadak Shanti Tatsvat Tatra Jagat Guru Bhavata Darshanam Yasya Bhavadarshanam. That she was praying to see problems because problems helped her remember Krishna. But then she says that anyone who's interested in both advancing and acquiring material wealth, Aishvarya, Shrutabhi, Edamana, Madatpuman, Naivahatva Dadatumvai, Bam Akinchana Gochara. That anyone who's interested too much in getting Aishvarya, wealth, Shruta, material learning, Shribhi, beauty and influence, that it's very hard for them to chant the holy name with any kind of feeling. Therefore, in the relationships with the devotees, there should be the mood of not trying to get some material gain, but trying to develop the gain of a service attitude, loving attitude. After all, we may get the whole world, but if we don't develop a loving attitude towards others, service attitude towards others, beginning with Krishna and Krishna's devotees, then how can we be happy? Because love is that mood of love, spiritual love, devotional love, which puts us under the influence of the spiritual energy, is the happiness that we're looking for. And in that happiness, then that happiness simply grows as one becomes more and more under the influence of that spiritual energy. And there's nothing we really need if one is satisfied with pure love and happiness, then there's no external object that we need to give us external happiness or appreciation or love or affection, because we're already experiencing it. Therefore, to apply the teachings of Krishna within our lives, especially in relation with others, in terms of our attitude of love and devotion, as a servant of Krishna, will actually give us the happiness that we're looking for. On the other hand, if we come under the spell of the illusory energy and become overly interested in getting something in our relationships, then the result is that will not become satisfied. And what to speak if we become envious or inimical towards devotees? Then our ability to hear about Krishna from them will diminish. And therefore, whatever good qualities they have, whatever abilities they have, if we can't hear from them how they've acquired them, then we'll be denied those good qualities and abilities in devotional service. Therefore, at least in the beginning, we're practicing developing loving relationships with the devotees. Because if we can become expert in loving relations with the devotees, then also we can apply those and we can see others as at least potential candidates for being under the spiritual energy and therefore reviving their devotion to Krishna. Or as explained here, that everyone is serving Krishna, but under the influence of the illusory energy, one serves Krishna in illusion. And that illusion means one serves Krishna's material energy, which is always agitating us. In other words, when we're in the Bali concept of life, or the mental concept of life, or the false ego concept of life, there's no end to the agitation that the material nature gives us. And we think that if I serve the material energy, then at least I'll come to the platform of becoming peaceful. And if I'm peaceful, then that at least will be my happiness, is being peaceful. Therefore, people work all week in order to achieve peace at the end of the week, because they don't know, because they haven't been taught how to find peace at the end of the week. Usually their weekends are worse than the week. And by the end of the weekend, they're weak. That's why it's called the weekend, because by the end of the week, you're quite weak. And they look forward to going back to work so they can live a regulated life, free from the vices that they've acquired or that they participated in during the weekend, which weaken them. And they hope to get back to their normal life, regulated life, during the next week. But the devotee, they don't have a weekend, they don't have a weekday. They have simply an opportunity to serve Krishna. And if they take up that opportunity and they appreciate the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that is, Yari Deka Tari Kaha Krishna Upadesh, Amara Aga Guru Tanahari Desh. That if we meet anyone and we simply remember that my duty is to pray to Krishna with the intelligence so that I can serve this devotee nicely. That I can help them either in their service, or I can help them in their practical service, or I can help them somehow or another, remind them about Krishna, and according to my ability and my relationship, help them understand how they can revive and invoke their relation with Krishna more steadily and more enthusiastically. Therefore, we can see in the life of Srila Prabhupada that Srila Prabhupada was extremely careful in how he dealt with every person, but especially we can see how he dealt with devotees. Prabhupada was not interested in getting into conflicts with his devotees, with his followers, or with anyone, practically speaking. Of course, for preaching to the public, and sometimes for instructions to his disciples or followers. Sometimes Prabhupada acted in a way which would be considered to be quite strong. But it was quite evident, because the next moment he would be completely peaceful and affectionate and loving and would not hold any grudges against anyone, that he only was quite strong to be instructive. But for the most part, we don't even have that much ability for most of our relationships, that if we're strong, then people will take it the wrong way. Like one time, Prabhupada was with some gentleman, an official in the government, and Prabhupada was trying to convince him, I believe, to give some visas to the devotees. But the gentleman was not very, Indian gentleman, was not very appreciative. So Prabhupada grabbed him by his collar and shook him a little bit, kind of woke him up. And later on, Prabhupada explained to the devotees, he said, I'm an old man. When I do something like that, people don't take me seriously. He said, if you do that, then it'll be the person will not take it in the same way. So we have to be extremely careful in dealing with others and pray to Krishna for the intelligence, for the objective. In other words, consciously or unconsciously, we always have some goal. For most people, the goal is not very deep. The goal is very superficial. But for the devotee, the goal is very deep, especially if it's to inspire others to take up the service of Krishna and deepen their awareness of Krishna. So that requires extreme amount of thoughtfulness, and thoughtfulness really means dialoguing, the conversation with the super soul, asking or praying for the intelligence how to do our service in Krishna consciousness. And according to our sincerity, according to our experience, according to our desire, and Krishna will reciprocate with us. Many times when the devotees are preaching, then it becomes evident of our relation with Krishna. If we read the Sankirtan stories, how devotees go out and distribute books, and when they have a sincere desire to distribute the books, how Krishna reciprocates with them and makes the arrangements that in very wonderful ways the books become distributed. But it's not only when we're distributing books that Krishna can make wonderful arrangements. Matter of fact, Prabhupada's life, for instance, because he was always under the spiritual energy completely, therefore his life, every moment was wonderful. And that's our normal life, that every moment, everything is more and more wonderful. And if we try to apply the process that has been given to us by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through our acharyas in disciple succession, and follow our process of sadhana bhakti, although it may not seem extremely wonderful, getting up in the morning and going to Mangalarti, or having a Mangalarti in our home, chanting Hare Krishna, reading Srila Prabhupada's books, worshiping the deity, serving devotees, and trying to make the atmosphere spiritual by preaching and making every nice arrangements for Krishna and his devotees. So it may not seem extraordinary, but actually puts us into extraordinary consciousness, because we come under the spiritual energy, and the spiritual energy is extraordinary. It has unlimited bliss. As Maharaj Shabdev said, Nanan deho deha bhajam riloke, kastan karman arhate vidbujamye, Po divyam putraka yena sadvam Shudyat as my Brahma Sokyam Tunam Dump. Maharaj Rishabdev was quite straightforward with his sons, and he told them not to act like a dog or a hog. Now, of course, for most people, we cannot be so straightforward. They become very offended if we say you're acting or you're working like a dog or a hog. But basically speaking, that's what people are doing. However polite they may be, however sophisticated their habits may be, or how talented they may be as an athlete or a singer, or as an actor, or as a businessman, or anything. Still, ultimately speaking, their objective is the same: how to increase their eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. At the end of the day, especially those who are most expert at acquiring money nowadays, generally speaking, they misuse it simply to expand their animalistic activities. And people accept it, that this is normal. They can't conceive of any other activity. Whereas it says in the Bhagavatam, Svavit Brahostra Karar Samstuta Purusha Pashu Yat Karma Papyopeta Jatunama Gadagraja. That those who are like hogs and dogs and camels and asses, they glorify the bigger hogs, dogs, camels, and asses. But they never take time to glorify the Supreme Person who holds a club in his hands. So generally speaking, people are absorbed in increasing their animalistic propensities because their only experience is the external energy. They don't know Krishna, and they don't know how nice it is to be in Krishna consciousness. Therefore, andayatandira upigamanas hipisha tantra urudami vada. Therefore, they're blind, and they're being misled by other blind people. But we ourselves, if we practice sadhana bhakti regularly, and even sincerely try to increase the quality of our chanting, the quality of our service, the quality of our relationship with the other devotees, the quality of our relationship with other people, then the result is that we can be the light, the enlightening factor that will change people from the path of destruction to the path of enlightenment, from the path of forgetting Krishna to the path of becoming conscious of Krishna again. So not only do we have an obligation to follow the process and experience Krishna consciousness for ourselves, but Krishna will be even more pleased when we take whatever knowledge and experience we have and we try to apply it in such a way as to help others revive their relationship with Krishna also. It is not that we have to become big philosophers, big scholars, super popular or charismatic. Simply, we have to get a little experience in Krishna consciousness by sincerely praying to come under the influence of the spiritual energy and doing what's necessary to help us achieve that goal. And by that experience, then we enter into the fire of Krishna consciousness. And if we're in the fire of Krishna consciousness, then it'll spread to others. And if we take Krishna consciousness as a social organization or an intellectual experience, intellectual theory, or something as a side hobby in our lives, then we may not get the full experience of entering into the spiritual energy and experiencing it for ourselves. Although in one sense it's very simple to enter into the spiritual energy, but Maya is always interested in encouraging us to forget Krishna and to do something else other than devotional service. It's like if we have devotees, well, we have children sometimes when they're very young, then they put some books on one side and they put some money on the other side. And then we see where the child goes, either to the money or to the books. But for the devotees, we should have a test. We put so many books of interest, mundane books of interest, art books, photography books, etc. on one side. And we put Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam on the other side. And we have a closed circuit camera. And we observe the devotee, which book he goes for, where his actual interest at that moment is. So we should consider that. Nowadays, we have so many opportunities. We have the World Wide Web, where you can go to heaven in one moment by hearing about Krishna, or you can go to hell the next moment by clicking on the wrong channel. So heaven and hell are available to everyone in this world nowadays. And we should be intelligent enough to choose the spiritual energy and therefore not become influenced by the external energy. And that's Prabhupada's mercy. He's given us the opportunity to be in Vaikuntha. And that umbrella of spiritual energy will save us from the problems of Kali Yuga. So thank you. Spasiba. Any questions or comments? Yes, Antaryami.
Я Гурудева, see you. I'm full of see you. Thank you so much. Я хотел спросить, прошу прощения, что может быть не по теме, это лекции замечательные. Если в воскресенье я занят на служении в храме, мы сейчас живем в двух местах, иногда на Варшане, здесь воскресенье свободно, а иногда в Луганске, там в воскресенье полностью занято служением на храмовой программе. И если я из-за этого пропускаю общение с вами по воскресеньям, как мне правильно быть? Подскажите, пожалуйста, подключаться или же участвовать в храмовой программе?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. And Antaryami Prabhu's question is such that now he lives in two places, Varshana and Lugansk. And in Varshana, during the week, he's quite free with his time, he can manage. But on Saturday and Sunday, on the weekend, he is full-time busy. And he sometimes doesn't have the time to attend to your lectures. So what has he do? Has he tell them, should he tell the temple authorities that he cannot attend the temple programs and cannot be busy with them because he has to attend to your lecture, or else he attends your lecture and tells them that he doesn't have time for the temple programs?
Well, I don't know. The lecture is only for 1 hour. Is it possible to do both?
Я не знаю, извините, лекция всего час идет. Андреевна, Прабhu, выключите, пожалуйста, звук одного.
Может быть, делает оба.
В воскресенье на храмовой программе именно это время, как сейчас, оно самое занятое, там самое полное служение.
On Sunday, this particular time, or when the lecture is on, is the busiest time.
Okay. You can always listen to it on the internet after it's still there. You know, it doesn't have to be live. You can listen to it later. It's good to attend the programs in the temple. Or 1 week you can attend, 1 week you can attend this program, 1 week you can attend the other program. Hare Krishna. Lisa?
Кришна, примите, пожалуйста, мои поклоны с вами, преданные. Я хотела поблагодарить, сказать, что мне очень сильно нравится метод общения, такой стальной, отсекающий лишнее. Бескомпромиссный, я бы так сказала. Вот. У меня есть такой вопрос. Переведете или дальше говорить?
Да, я переведу, и если вы выключите Zoom у себя, чтобы не...
Вы переведете?
Матушка, вы...
Мой вопрос...
So Mataji wants to thank you very much for such a sincere and uncompromising lecture.
Мой вопрос относительно, я не могу разобраться с одним предметом. Мне старшая наставница говорит, что есть позиция наблюдателя, вот без которой внимательно джапу повторять чуть ли невозможно. Вот.
Матушка, секундочку, потому что сложный вопрос. Okay. So Maharaj, one of her senior devotees is told her that it's very difficult to chant the japa properly unless she is the overseer. That's the position of the overseer. Окей, Матушка, повторяйте дальше.
И я не могу понять, что это за позиция наблюдателя. То, что я читаю про Прабхупада, то, что пишет про наблюдателя, я не могу там увидеть именно практику этого наблюдателя.
So she says something about the seer or overseer, and what Prabhupada says about this position of the seer, she doesn't understand the practical application of that.
И не могу понять, куда эту практику отнести. Это санкхья или это к бхакти относится? И что это такое вообще? Расскажите, пожалуйста, если можете. Харе Кришна.
I can't understand what is that. Is that a Sankhya philosophy or is that the bhakti? Could you please tell me about this position of the seer? What does it mean and how to practice this?
Nishnayo. The Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Upadrastanamanta cha Bharata Bhokta Maheshwara Paramatmati Chapyuto Dehesmin Purusha Para. Yet in this body there's another who's the overseer and permitter, who's the supreme proprietor. He's known as the super soul. So Krishna says he's the overseer, that he sees everyone, what they're doing. We hardly see what we're doing. But we should be conscious enough, at least when we're chanting, to understand that we're unconscious, practically speaking. But our only hope is to take shelter of Krishna and Srimati Radharani to give their mercy. And if we get their mercy and they engage us in the internal energy, then we'll wake up again and understand our eternal relationship with them. So we're chanting with attention and with sincere feelings, as Prabhupada said, like a child calling for its mother, that it may give a shelter under the internal energy. That much we should see. Everything else is not so important.
Спасибо большое. Харе Кришна.
Mataji, Jambavati, Devidasi. Jambavati, Vavasyes Vaprosi. Jambavati,
Hare Krishna, Guru
Vavasyes
Maharaj.
Vaprosi.
I can speak English. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The first thing I want to express my gratitude for your support. I'm a disciple of Niranjana Swami for nearly 40 years. And you saved my life during COVID. I want to express big gratitude. It was amazing. It was discovery saved my life with your classes, with lectures, and with support. And I recently saw your pictures with my Guru Maharaj in Mayapur, and it was amazing. Thank you very much for taking care of my Guru Maharaj. And Gaia, your aspiring disciple, she's my daughter-in-law. We're living together. She's under my strict supervision. So we both love you. We do love you. We love your mood. We love your classes. We love your say everything about you. We just love you. And thank you for being for us, for your disciples as well. Thank you for everything. I just wanted to say big thank you and thank you for allowing us enjoy your classes and providing your guidance. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.
Thank you. Thank you for Guru Maharaj.
Can't hear you.
Thank you. Thank you for Guru Maharaj. We could try to become his best an instrument for Srila Prabhupada and for his followers. We could try to become his best an instrument for Srila Prabhupada and for his followers.
Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, can I ask a question? Hare Krishna Maharaj, can I ask a question?
1 minute. Where are you from?
If one realizes that he broke Ekadashi, let's say 12 o'clock in the noon, you took a chapati and you had no idea it's Ekadashi. So how do you, so for the rest of the day you should eat grains and then the next day you should follow? How is it working? Because otherwise you would be so weak the next day if you try to do it 1.5 days.
No, if you know you've broken Ekadasi, then follow Ekadasi for the rest of the day. And then not the next day, but the day after, follow Ekadasi. Because the next day you're supposed to break Ekadasi.
Then you have to 1.5 days. It's like a little bit difficult, maybe. I don't know. So if you found out that it's 12 o'clock, then you have to do another until that day, the end of the day, and then the next day again.
Yeah, sure. Won't die. And he died in the spiritual world by doing that austerity for Krishna. Anastasia?
Харе Кришна, Гуру Махарадж, спасибо вам большое за лекцию. Очень рада присутствовать и видеть вас снова. У меня вопрос такой по поводу того, какой духовный опыт мы должны получить и как правильно его передать преданным, чтобы их можно было вдохновить. Ну, то есть, как правильно выражать этот опыт. Подскажите, пожалуйста. Харе Кришна.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, happy to see you. Thank you so much for the lecture and this opportunity to see you again. So the question that I have is that what kind of experience should we get and how correctly to, let's say, transfer this experience to others?
Well, that experience will depend upon Krishna and depend upon how Krishna sees we're qualified to get experience. Now, the very activities of sadhana bhakti should give us some experience. In the beginning, even when we chant Hare Krishna and not so offenselessly, still we can see that the chanting is not ordinary because there's no other sounds that we can repeat constantly and they're always new and fresh. They may not be so new sometimes and so fresh sometimes, but we can go on chanting for hours and still we can go on chanting. It doesn't become boring, hopefully. So that in itself is an experience. When we dance, we can feel that we're in the spiritual energy to some extent. When we talk about Krishna, we can feel we're under a different energy than when we're in the material energy. So those are all experiences. And how to give them to others? We have our tools. We have the 9 processes of bhakti. We have our chanting especially. We have prasadam. We have our books. So it is not that we're giving people experience. It's Krishna is giving them the experience and using us as an instrument to introduce them to Krishna and to the process of getting experience in Krishna consciousness. But we don't give experience because we're just we're trying to become his instrument so they Krishna gives them experience. We can't force Krishna to reveal himself, but we can encourage people to act in such a way as Krishna becomes happy to reveal himself to them. Thank you very much. Большое спасибо. Грантарай Шримад Bhagavad Gita Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada. Gaur Premanande Haribol.
Haribol.
His Holiness Prahladananda Swami Maharaj ki.
Jai. Спасибо,
Jai,
Гуру
Maharaj.
Махарадж.
Большое спасибо, Гуру Махарадж. Харе Кришна.
Спасибо.